Peace, everybody. Welcome back to Rise of the Moors. Today we're going to go into enforcing the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and enforcing the Constitution, which is the same thing. I'm going to go over some affidavits that I've sent to people who've been facing certain charges, and I told them to enforce, do what Raleigh said, enforce the Constitution, which is enforcing the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. So that's what we have for today, so stick around if you want to hear more about that, and I'll put on the projector screen the actual affidavit that I helped someone write, and then, so you can see for yourself. So we're going to start with the things to be read at every meeting. Start off with caveat emptor. Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the Prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They are fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest height for smelly culprits with their insidious plans to invade such a realm. They try, but their own bad planning brings down wrath upon their heads like the sword old Democulus had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunning find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. This is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by Prophet Noble Raleigh, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and may be called into action as a matter of defense at any moment. Prophet Noble Raleigh knows the people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All of the Moors are active, not passive. A member's interest can only be in one direction, and having traveled over the road years before, the Prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemers work, where traitors grin, and culprits bask in the sun. They think they are on the same road the true Moors, but the Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destructionists as they fall for the last time and their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers flying high catch scent, devour and leave crying out, caveat emptor, cast out the dead carcass. The Moors high above see these plotters, purveyors, the worst that exist, hurl themselves downward by their own works as the hawks await. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There's a host of jealousy about me in the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials of the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they're working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. This is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past. Performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Raleigh. And this is to the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. This is the instructions from your prophet Noble Raleigh. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Raleigh. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone, and many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded by their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah, in the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace. Your divine prophet, Noble Dwelling. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Ali. So I also, to start the course, or the open discussion, whatever you want to call it, on the treaty book, I also want to go into, I think it was his message to the nations. So if you want to adjust the camera, I'm going to sit down now. Yeah, this is a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. It's pretty lengthy. So, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. Now, because this applies to enforcing the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and the Constitution. Because if you like there's a group called Moral Law. There's some Moors, or alleged Moors, who's wearing like a fez in their profile picture, talking about the treaties don't apply to us. They apply to the Moroccans over on the continent of Africa. Mm-hmm. But they weren't founded until 1956, and the treaty was 1786, 1787, so what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. So it's again that whole confusion thing. So this just blows them out of the water. So if you just read Drali's literature and you figure out, oh, the Kingdom of Morocco didn't exist until 1956, clearly the treaty don't apply to them. Mm-hmm. Well, it does apply to them, but clearly they're not the authors of it. You know what I'm saying? So this is, again, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And that's so-called black people. They're going through that right now. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to those names and principles that delude to slavery. So that's the Spanish, Black, Indian, West Indian, colored, Negro. Those are the names that delude to slavery. And then the so-called black people shooting their own brother for stepping on their shoes. Those are the principles that delude to slavery. And the so-called Indians just having their people march down the street and pray and get nothing done. Those are the principles that delude to slavery. You're just burning energy and not doing nothing. The same thing with the so-called black leaders, or really all Moors, so-called Indians, so-called blacks, all Moors, having their people saying justice or else and then don't do nothing. Those are principles that delude to slavery. As an example, I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back into that state of mind of their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement. Now, that's very important because some people will say, oh, you can only get your salvation through the temple. That's not what the prophet said. He said through the Moorish divine national movement. You see what I'm saying? So people are saying stuff that is against the prophet, and then they're saying so-and-so doesn't teach what the prophet taught, but you're not teaching what the prophet taught. You see what I'm saying? Which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all the nations of the world. and through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. So black people, they have to they gotta get permission from their owners to see if their vote counts, because they're Christian property by oral agreement, by consent.
Yeah.
Same thing with Indians. They're Christian property by consent, by agreement. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law, in the city hall and among the officials of your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone, and without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate, and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. So it's our constitution. It's not some European thing that they created. I love my people and I desire their unity and mine. And that's funny because someone said, Prophet Noble Ali never said he was a Moor. But then he says, my people, and then he says they're Moors. So yeah, that's like a Japanese person saying my people and then saying Japanese. Clearly they're Japanese. So again, I love my people and I desire their unity and mine back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. So the nationals, the Moors, and the other Europeans claiming to be white, that's not your national identity. What is your nationality? And all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Isn't that so-called black people? They're misused, they're imprisoned, right? They say, oh, you're black, you can't come to this community, you're exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. That's Constitution and Treaty. You know what I'm saying? Our forefathers created the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. People recognize that. So if we say we're Moors, clearly the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between Morocco and the United States applies to us. You know what I'm saying? We're declaring that we're a party to that contract by claiming who we are. Black people aren't a party to that because no black person wrote that.
Yeah.
A Chinese person isn't a party to that because that's between Morocco and the United States, not China and the United States. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger. The same as the word color deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And remember, in the law book, color means something fake. Simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real. So when you get a blank easel and you paint on it, it's really blank, but you colored it, now it looks like something else. It appears to be something else. So when you say you're a colored man, you're saying I'm appearing to be a man, but I'm not. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. Not a cloud, the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth. that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at the time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law was in force since 1774, declared all men free and equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. Now, if you read and I mentioned this in my book, if you read the 14th Amendment, it talks about privileges, person, and citizen. But if you read any other amendment, it talks about the people and rights. Mm-hmm. And then you look into person in the law book and says person of two kinds, natural and artificial. They're talking about the artificial person, the corporations. That's why he said that. Mm-hmm. So clearly he knows law. And people say Noble Drew Ali didn't teach civics and law, and those Moors who are teaching that are wrong. But then if you read, the things to be proclaimed at every meeting, they're trying to drag out the true foundation, which is your mental, mm-hmm. and cause confusion in the people's minds. Yeah. So it's like, because a lot of people, I noticed a lot of people are wondering, like me too. I was like, why are they doing this? Why are they causing confusion? Mm-hmm. But they get paid to do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, once you accept that, it's easier. You know what I mean? Like, okay, they're just criminals. That's what criminals do. You can't really rationalize what criminals do. They just do criminal stuff. Yeah. They're treasonous. So, there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. The lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come. Because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of men that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. Now this is very important because he's talking about carnal customs and merely ideas of men. So people talk about, oh, this person's honorable, that person's honorable, just the idea of that person instead of what that person was really saying. Mm-hmm. If they're talking about we're black, they're not for us, period. It doesn't matter how good they say, oh, the so-called white man been oppressing us for 400 years. That irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Irrelevant. Don't judge a man based off how, passionate he is. What is he saying? Yeah. You know what I mean? What is he really saying? Don't just, oh, well, he fought for the people. Did he really? You know what I'm saying? Because remember, they're infiltrating people in our movement, slowing them down. So did he really? Not
even better, judge by their actions.
Yeah.
Who funds them?
Yeah, exactly. Who funds them, first of all? Because you can't say down with the cracker and then get funded by the so-called cracker. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. You can't say he's an enemy and then you go work his job. Like,
who do they spend their time with? What actions did they take to back up their words?
Yeah. So stop feeling merely ideas of men. Mm-hmm. That's irrelevant. You know what I mean? So I, the prophet, hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin, and there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc. In their present condition of their endeavorment, in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world, they will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives a life. And I'm hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in the great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. And it's very powerful that he said he examined the conditions, and it's our people doing it. It's our people killing each other. Yeah, so-called the Europeans do kill us, but it's our people just perpetuating that violence on each other, beating each other up, shooting each other. For what? Yeah. You know there's an enemy, so why are you fighting each other? That doesn't make sense. And then any so-called Moor trying to say that Moor doesn't teach this prophet Noble Drew Ali more science when Drew Ali never said this is more science. They're causing division. Why? There's a reason why they're doing that. You know what I mean? Our people need to take responsibility. Like, stop shooting your brother. Like, what are you shooting him for? Because you're in poverty? You're going to shoot someone else who's in poverty because you're in poverty? Because you ain't got nothing? How does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I also wanted to read, Prophet makes a plea to the nation. Our divine and national movement stands for the specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I, the Prophet, am applying to all loyal, faithful Moors, members, and the American citizens to help me in my great uplifting acts to uplift, fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For I have suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of the divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names. And to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America. That's why I am calling on all true national citizens. So people try to say, we're not Moorish American nationals. What are you talking about? If you're a Moroccan and you're in Morocco, clearly you're a national. If you're Japanese and you're in Japan, clearly you're a national. What are you talking about? We're not Moorish American national. What are you? Just dumb. Trying to cause confusion. Deliberately. You know what I mean? Consciously, like, I'm going to cause confusion. That's what they're... you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not they didn't know. They're knowing what they're doing. You can't not know what you're doing. Like, I'm picking up this paper. I know I'm picking this paper up. You get what I'm saying? That's why I'm calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and, financially in my great work I am doing to help me financially in my great work that I'm doing to help this national government. For without a free national name, without a descent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which we live. This is from your true and divine prophet unto all American and foreign sympathizers, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So people get mad at certain Moors because they allow Europeans into their temples. He said everyone.
Yeah.
This isn't just Moors stuff. Everyone's. He said, I came to you, my people, because you need me the most, because we're the most out of order. He came to be the example, to put us in order. Or bring us back to the constitutional form of government. Just remind us of, hey, this is your stuff.
But how are you spreading love and peace if
you're denying people to come into the temple?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. Let me get my tea, because my throat's all dried up.
And just as we need to learn, they need to learn too.
Yeah, exactly, because these Europeans really think that they're Americans. Some of them really do. Just like some of our people really think they're black. You know what I mean? It doesn't just affect us. This affects everyone.
Yeah.
And people need to, the faster people realize that, the faster things will change. So, since Noble Drew Ali said, things are formed by our forefathers, people recognize that. And then you also hear more say, when Drew Ali was on the scene, he said the United States went to Morocco to be recognized, right? And then Barack Obama said the first nation to recognize the United States was Morocco. And he talks about the Treaty of Tripoli, and then he goes into Article 11, which says, I'm going to read right here, this is, I think this is Taj Tashriq Bey's book. You can get this on rbbaypublications.com. Right? The Treaty of Tripoli, Article 11. Because some people think, I was talking to this European woman, and she was talking about how this is a Christian country. But let's see what the founding fathers said. Right? Let's just see what they said. Treaty of Tripoli. Let's just read that. Because people need a clear concept of what this government is, because it's not a Christian country at all. Let's just go. So this is Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli, 1796 AD. Article 11. Obama said this when he was in Egypt. As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, and then this is where Obama started, it has in itself no character or enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslim men, and as the United States have never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Mohammedan nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinion shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. And as we know right now, there is definitely a war on Islam. And these Christians are perpetuating it. But it's the Roman clergymen who overthrew the Republic, 1861, who are perpetuating this war. Not, because remember last week I was talking about how there's different groups of people at play.
Yeah.
There's the Moors who wanted to end the wars with the Europeans, and then there's the Europeans who wanted to continue the wars and overthrow our people, and then there's those Moors, the conversos, who are working with those people trying to overthrow our stuff. So this what's happening right now isn't new. Just like then it wasn't new, and then even before then it wasn't new.
Yeah.
As you read history, you'll always hear about the Moriscos and conversos, the people who converted to Christianity. The Nicene Creed of 325 AD, not the actual religion of activating your pineal gland. So people need to know that there's a difference. And when you say Christian, you're not just talking about European, you're talking about a political faction of people.
Yeah.
And when you say Islam, you're not talking about Muslims, you're talking about a political faction of people.
Yeah.
Because they were Europeans who were Islamic. It's people need to understand it's not just whose God is better. It's never been about that. That's just for the dummies, to keep them distracted. I mean, go be dumb and we'll run the country. That's really what it is, right? So we need to talk about this diversity of citizenship issue that's facing our people, because we keep perishing by the day for the lack of knowledge. And this kind of throws out the whole Indians, ran shit here. Because I'm going to read this treaty, some of the treaty, and then read the treaty between the so-called Indians that I have in my book, and you can just compare the difference. Like, one submitting to the other in the Indian treaty, and then our treaty with the Moroccan treaty with the United States, no one submitting to anyone. Because they're enforcing the act of state doctrine. Every state is going to recognize every other state. Every national government is going to recognize the sovereignty of every other national government. We're all equals, you know what I'm saying? But if you read any Indian treaty, it's always the Indians are being in a suppressed position. So when you say you're Indian, you're agreeing to be that.
Yeah.
And then blacks don't have any treaties because they're not a nation of people. You get what I'm saying? So I want to just read some of the stuff. Actually, I'll just go straight into the gun charges thing that a few people have asked me to help them with because they're studying, but they just, we all need support. So I wanted to read this because this is what's at play right now. Our people have always been imprisoned for crimes they didn't commit, for non-violent crimes. Again, in order for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. There's never an injured party. Our people get arrested for possession of a weapon when we have the right to keep and bear arms, but they're playing that language game when a weapon is something used for destructive purposes in combat. So they're putting that status on our people when they really need to know that they don't have weapons. They're bearing arms, and you can't get charged for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So this is very important. And this also goes into the enforcement of the Constitution and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, because the Treaty of Peace and Friendship never granted any European, British, German, Dutch, French, Polish, whatever you want to call them, never granted them any jurisdiction over us, period. But if you read any Indian treaty, the United States always has jurisdiction over them by agreement.
Yeah.
We never agreed to that.
No.
We're our own nation of people. And that's Article 3 of the Constitution. Read it.
Yeah.
Diversity of citizenship. You get what I'm saying? So that's a federal jurisdiction. All right, let me plug this in. Wait, why isn't it?
Hold on. I'm gonna set up the camera while you.
Yeah. I know. This is the reason why I put it in my book, like the so-called weed, possession of weed, and weapons possession, because this is what our people are suffering from. Like, the Europeans are putting our people through this game, and it really is a game. Because you can't get charged for, exercising your right. Let's see if I can get this right. Make this look pretty. All right. Is it, you want to move it down because that glare?
Yeah.
That. And I'll zoom in as well. So, this is stuff that people have actually used. So, we always fly our colors because we've been declared lost at sea, and we want to display to other nations that you're talking to a national. And then again, acts of state, I'll just read that real quick, because these are principles that we need to know. So the acts of state doctrine states that every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state, and the courts will not sit in judgment of another government's acts done within its own territories. So what is that saying? That's saying no Japanese person can try any more on their own homeland. And what are these Europeans doing? They're trying Moors on their own homeland.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because most of these Moors think that they're black. So by consent and agreement, they waive their rights. You see the game?
Yeah.
And then these Indians, they think that they're 14th Amendment citizens too. So again, in all their treaties, they're waiving their rights. And then again, with the joint memorandum of understanding with the Narragansett so-called Indians and the so-called state of Rhode Island, they agree that their corporate laws will apply to them and their people. That's a fraud. States can't enter into treaties. That's why they call it a memorandum. It's just a memo.
Mm-hmm.
You get the trick?
Yeah.
This is how you combat them on the record, because they deal with the record, right? Let me just make that red so people can see. So this can be used to combat anything. These principles can be used to combat anything, anything at all. And I'll show an example of how I personally used it as well. So you put your name. Well, who's going to the clerk's name, whatever. And remember, in law, an affidavit that is filed or sent in, notice the agent, notice the principal, regardless of what it says on it,
Mm-hmm.
you filed it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You did your job. You rebutted. You defended yourself. And then you insert your free national name, because they always put the straw name, state versus straw name. You know what I mean? And then you put in relation to what it is, because remember, X row for the straw name means you have information as it pertains to this, but you got to claim it to be it. Since the straw man can't speak for itself,
Mm-hmm.
To cover our butts, like I got information on this. If you're talking about me personally, then I got rights.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about the straw man, then I don't really care. But I'm not surety as that straw man, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
They deal with the birth certificate piece of paper that can't do anything, and they hold our bodies as surety. Like, okay, whatever we decree on this piece of paper, we're holding this human body as surety to make sure that this so-called debt gets paid or whatever this obligation gets paid. This is why people are getting mass produced into jail.
Mm-hmm.
The prison industrial complex that our people always talk about, and then even if you read history, you'll always read that so-called black people were always committed, put in jail for crimes they didn't commit. Even today, there's a program to release so-called black people out of jail for crimes they didn't commit.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming out damaged. And then back in the day, I talk about this in my book. They always try to say that so-called black person raped a so-called white woman
Mm-hmm.
to put our people in jail.
Yeah.
So we're fighting the same system.
Mm-hmm.
The same exact system. This is what we're dealing with. It's not racism.
Mm-hmm.
It's just now you see how they're doing it.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was just they don't like us, but no,
Yeah.
they're doing it because this is your land. You know what I mean? So this is kind of how. I know it kind of sounds like we're getting off topic, but I'm really not, because all of this is in play at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So you put your case number. So we're always dealing with the record. Always with the record, right? Put the case number. Then you put your mailing location, PO box or whatever, so that they can respond to you if need be. You put the date, and then you put what exhibit it is, A, B, C, A1, A2, A3, whatever. And then, so this would be an affidavit of fact, a quo warranto, which means on the warrant, a writ of removal to remove the case, and information, and other things. And then the principal notice to the agent is notice to the principal, notice to the principal, notice to the agent, and that translates to UCC 1-202, which just means knowledge. I mean, you've been informed. Meaning I did my job. You know, greetings of peace. I, insert your free national name, rightfully demand, we're not motioning anything, we're making demands because this is our land, imperium, right? We're law-abiding citizens, we're making demands. For this case, put in quotation marks because it's never a case. They're just making it seem like they're legitimate, but it's never a real case at all. And then you put the number, and these alleged charges, because they're never charges, because again, you can't be charged for bearing arms, but they just say in possession of a deadly weapon or possession of a weapon. Those are frauds, right? You put it here and you insert the statute because they always put, you know, blah 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 blah. You just put it in there because you know when they send you information, they'll have it on there what your so-called charges are. So just insert it in there. To be dismissed for the mere fact alone that it is my constitutionally secured right to keep and bear arms supported by the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Stare decisis. Remember, stare decisis means to stare at a decision. The people decided that we have the right to bear arms. Of the American Constitution and the common law, and then we insert the case, right, a court case. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of the exercise of a constitutional right. So this first line alone dismisses the case. Yeah. Period. But we're dealing with criminals. You know what I'm saying? And we also want to teach our people, so we make these affidavits lengthy. Yeah. So they have more of a platform to stand on because these people, like, we're right in court. We're correct. But these criminals are still going to challenge you. Yeah. This is why it's important to know that these affidavits, the information alone is not going to get it dismissed. They're going to challenge you, period, because they're criminals. That's why you hear more say, stand on your square, stand on this knowledge. Don't get off of it. Because as soon as you deviate, start taking deals, it makes them seem like they're legitimate, and they still win.
So you're just jumping back into the game.
Exactly. Let it be clear, for the record, that according to Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, a weapon is an instrument of offensive combat used or designed to be used in destroying or injuring. I, state your free national name, being a Moorish American national, guided by the high principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, I have no intentions on using any weapons for any purposes of destruction, nor offensive combat. According to the same dictionary, an arm is anything that a man takes in his hands or anything that a man wears for his defense, an insignia of honor. So this is why in the Constitution it says the right to bear arms. Not to bear weapons, because a weapon is something used for combat and destruction. We're for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Isn't that what Drew said? So I incorporated what our prophet said into law, because what he said is law. Continuing, let it be known that I, insert your free national name, was not in possession of any weapons with any intent to cause anyone or anything bodily harm, nor to facilitate an offense, nor to facilitate a felony, considering I have not committed nor plan to commit any crimes. As a matter of public interest, and to assure I'm dealing with a legally and lawfully competent court with prescribed jurisdiction, per Article 3, that's Acts of State, and Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9 of the American Constitution, I rightfully, so that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9 is the right to, Congress has the ability to institute inferior tribunals. So we're saying, are you congressionally sanctioned? Right? I rightfully demand to see the judge's oath or affirmation to support and defend the Constitution for America in regards to this matter. It has been declared, made known, and substantiated in Stone versus Paulwell that state courts, like federal courts, have a constitutional obligation to safeguard personal liberties and uphold federal law to protect people from encroachment and molestation of their pre-existing rights. So remember when I did that constitutional thing that I did, right? And I used the scales of Libra as an example. Right? This person, the judge, has a constitutional obligation that you have a fair trial. And then he weighs out the truth. So again, they have a constitutional obligation to make sure our rights don't get violated. That's this person's job. Period. That's what they take an oath to. That's why I'm saying, let me see your oath. You see what I'm saying?
So either they
have
have
a
to,
debt, an obligation. That's their oath.
so either they have to do their job, or they don't belong up there.
Yeah, or they're treasonous, and they can be charged. You see what I'm saying? So that's the principle that we're going off of. With that one, res judicata, Stonewall versus Powell. Right? And then I go straight to the Constitution, because Durrelli said he desires for us to go back to the Constitution, right? This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. That's their oath, that's their debt, that's their obligation. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So if they say you need a license to bear arms, notwithstanding. Because the Constitution already says it's your right. So a license is permission, so you don't need permission to exercise your right. You don't need permission to open up your refrigerator door. Treaty rights and use of international boundary streams cannot be interfered with by state statutes. And treaty is to be liberally construed in favor of such rights. So again, since a treaty is part of the Constitution, any laws to the contrary, notwithstanding. Considering the Constitution and all treaties made is the supreme law of the land, said at Article 6, being a contract, the federal contract law is the American Constitution. Being an Article 3 judge, which these people are claiming to be, so we're holding them to it, you are deemed to know law, and this case must not, we're not asking, this case must be dismissed on the grounds that it is in fact my constitutionally secured right to keep and bear arms, being a Moorish American national. So they try to say, you're in possession of a weapon and they do state statutes, blah, 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 blah. We're saying, well, that doesn't apply to me. The Constitution says this.
Yeah, not even that. They're switching up the names of everything.
Yeah, and so since they said weapon, we declared for the record on this document that we weren't in possession of any weapons. We were bearing arms. So even saying that is bringing it into the constitutional fold. Saying that, making the distinction that a weapon isn't constitutional, but an arm is. You see?
This one thing shuts the whole thing down.
That first thing that I read shut the whole thing down. This is just additional, knocking them out the box.
These are my rights. You can't infringe on my rights. By the way, are you an actual judge? And once again, do you remember the treaty?
Yeah, and your oath to it. And then we dispelled them saying, "Oh, I'm not in possession of any weapons. I'm bearing arms." Because they try to say, "Oh, you're a felon, and now you have a weapon." Like they try to make this. They're using semantic deceit.
Yeah.
All right. I'm hereby calling into force the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States, 1786, 1787, 1836. Also known as the Treaty of Amity and Commerce. The treaty granted no personam jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, nor territorial jurisdiction to the United States over any Moor/Moorish estate, except those which pertains to Article 21, which applies, so that's Article 21 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which applies to the criminal act of killing or wounding a citizen of the respective nations, to which the proper venue is consular courts. And then also see the Sundry v. Moors Act of 1790, where the Sundry v. Moors petition, I think it was California? Can't remember off the top of my head, but the House of Representatives clearly establishing for the record that they're not black, they were Moors, therefore the protection of the Sultan applied to them. Therefore, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship applied to them, not the Christian black codes. And then here's the Article 20 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and I put it right in the document. If any citizen of the United States or any person under their protection shall have any dispute with each other, the Council shall decide between the parties, and whenever the Council shall require any aid or assist from the government, from our government, to enforce its decisions, it shall be immediately granted to him. So they're talking about council courts, period. What's that? Oh, Sundry v. Moors? So here's the Sundry v. Moors, a law case 1789 to 1790. This legal case involved 4 Moors who were being falsely and forcibly held to the Negro status and were sold as slaves by the way of the usual birthright-stealing names brand tactics established by colonizing Europeans. The Moors petitioned the House and pleaded their legal status case and argument before the House of Representatives. They were successful in their confirmation of declaring their true nationality, and then it goes into a brief description. So this is, you can look up the journals of the House of Representatives, United States of America, Republic, North America, and published for the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. The date is 1789 to 1790. And then the petitioners were the ex-slaves Francis, Daniel, Hamid, and Samuel. And then you can just read the House journals on that. And it clearly establishes that they're not black. They're Moroccans, meaning they're Moors, meaning the treaty applies to them. So again, enforcing the Constitution and the treaty, if the court is not counselor or constitutional with treaties, it has no jurisdiction. That's a statement. Any attempt to adjudicate on the part of anyone, being a judge, prosecutor, or officer of the court in such controversies, is operating on color of law and color of authority, and thus fraudulent. See the General Civil Orders, June 10th, 2014. Just as an example. You can put you can put Title 28, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002, where they're a corporation. They don't have any constitutional jurisdiction. What are you talking about? Right? Being subject to the United States Code of Law, their own law, Title 28, Chapter 13, Section 241 and 242, which is, deriving people's rights under color and stuff like that. The enforcement of treaties is not only enforced by the federal Constitution, but also the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Read that and it'll clearly talk about treaties. States cannot make treaties and therefore have no jurisdiction. Being of a treaty nature, the jurisdiction is federal. Any jurisdiction claimed without mutual agreement within the prescribed proper form is void of law. So if they still try to adjudicate, it's void. But what people need to understand is that these people are inquisitionists. What was the main tool that they used during the Inquisition? Fear. So they say, if you don't show up, we're going to arrest you. And we got this bond, but it's not your name. It's a strong name, so what are you fearing? So every time you go to them, you're going by consent. And if you don't clearly establish a threat, duress, and coercion and put, people at the United Nations on notice, then it's a secret.
Yeah. Nobody knows about what they're doing.
Except for them and you.
Yep.
So again, states cannot make treaties, and that's in the Constitution. Therefore, they have no jurisdiction. So when it says the state versus you, there's a problem. That's diversity of citizens. They don't have jurisdiction. But if you don't know law, you don't know that. If you haven't read the Constitution, you clearly don't know that.
Yeah.
It said, again, the treaty said, in any controversy between us and them is council court, period. Did you forget? You see what I'm saying? Federal and state officials must set up consular courts to have lawful jurisdiction in Moorish affairs, period. Another statement. If provisions are not made to address foreign relations and intercourse in consular courts as prescribed by law, then no jurisdiction exists. A court of general sessions, congressionally sanctioned in accord with national constitutions and treaties, with consuls and officials representing both nations/nationals present, and in propria persona, is the proper jurisdiction. Is that confusing? Is that confusing at all?
No.
Okay. The Act of State Doctrine states that every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state, and the courts of one state will not sit in judgment of another government's acts done within its own territories. Is that confusing? So you got to keep in mind, a state is a collection of people bound by common law. That's your nation. So no Japanese person can judge over any Moors. Right? The council court is this right here. We're just going through this, right? So let's say Japan or any Japanese citizen is bringing charges against any more. Right? It's consular. Officials from each government will show up. They'll look at whatever their treaty says and see if there's a violation. But that's due process. And if there's a violation, then they'll go forward. Okay, well, in order to keep peace between our nations, we don't want to go to war. So we'll say, okay, yeah, we agree. We'll take fault or whatever, and we'll pay whatever. Or you know what? No, we'll declare diplomatic immunity. He was operating under this capacity. Blah blah blah. Whatever. And then it's a talk. You just talk about it, and then whatever happens happens. But these people are just the United States, and they're claiming jurisdiction over the people because they're claiming to be black, Negro, colored. You're giving them jurisdiction. You get what I'm saying? When they don't have it, so it can't be the state of versus you when states can't enter into treaties.
Yeah.
So how is that possible? And then again, it's the corporate state, which means it's not government. So how can they bring? Clearly, it's a commercial jurisdiction, but you hold them to the Constitution, period, because that's the supreme law of your land. Period. No ifs, and buts. No, there is no questions.
It says it right in the document. Why would you even want to be black? Because there's nothing backing you. Yeah. Nothing has your back.
But that also goes to being, misinformed and being in that darkness of sin that Joel Lee was talking about. Because the Europeans are teaching us that we're Negro, black, colored. You know what I mean? And then by the time we become adults, we've been saying that so much that we don't want to become hypocrites and go back on that word black when it really just doesn't mean anything. It means pale. You know what I mean? Because we since our people don't have anything, they attach to that. They attach to those names and principles that deal with slavery because first they don't want to be hypocrites. And then that's all they know. And they're like stubborn and they don't want to,
And you don't want to admit that you haven't known what you are your whole life.
Which, in order to fix a problem, you have to admit that there's a problem. And Drew Ali calls, a hard, stiff-necked group of people. We got to fix those issues and those principles, right? So that's an example. They would discuss what does the treaty say? Not what I say because I'm the judge and blah, blah. No, that's not lawful. Right? This is holding them to law. So, continuing. If this is a criminal or civil matter, then I rightfully demand to face my accuser. So you also have to understand that when they say, like the situation with Hammer, we'll just use his rap name, right? They're saying he was in possession of pot, whatever pot is, and a weapon, right? Yet, he didn't harm anyone. So who's bringing, again, look at the defendant and the plaintiff. If no one's sitting in that plaintiff chair, then no one's bringing charges against you. But, people try to say, oh, I'm the guy who represented the state of whatever. But it's a game. You can't punch Walmart and then Walmart bring charges against you.
And even by their own rules, there was no reason for them to approach anyway.
Yeah, but they're operating off our people not knowing. So when they say, oh, if you don't show up to this, we're going to arrest you. And our people get scared and they go. By consent. And again, the Inquisition is based on fear. But if you have knowledge, you're not fearful.
If somebody calls you to them not using your proper name,
why would you answer to it?
Exactly. So you're admitting that that's you.
Yeah. That's why Drew Ali said leave all business in your own name and conduct all business in your free national name. That's the ex relation. Like, this isn't me. Well, I'm going to respond to this because, I have information that pertains to this, and that's all you're saying. But the way it's worded in here, it protects your physical body. You get what I'm saying? And you clearly say you're a free national name. You never say I'm the straw because you're not. Period. Right? So again, if this is a criminal matter or civil matter, then I rightfully demand to face my accuser and to be informed with the nature of the accusations made against me so that I may properly defend myself. Because being in possession of a weapon, what does that mean? And who's seen me in possession of this weapon? And who reported this? Let me see them.
And especially if that doesn't even fit the definition of a weapon.
Right? According to the Sixth Amendment, and under the rule of discovery, I have the right to see the sworn and signed affidavit of the alleged injured party, that's the corpus delicti, the body of the crime, as well as to know who the injured party is to which I am obligated to provide remedy to. If there is no injured party present, nor the agent of the injured party with a contract between the injured party and his or her agent, who has also entered into the record a sworn affidavit of claims being made against me, and can attest to the same, then that stands as prima facie evidence that there is no case. Therefore, this case and the alleged charges must be dismissed. Is that complicated? So if there's no injured party and their contract's not on the record with their signed affidavit that they can attest to saying, yes, I wrote this, yes, I'm pointing out this person as the criminal, then nothing exists. And you'll often quickly find out that there's never anything with any injured party's signature on it. So in order for Jamal to bring charges against Bob Joe, there has to be a piece of paper with Jamal's signature on it. Or clearly Jamal's not bringing charges. Clearly Jamal's not a party to that. And these are principles of contract law, basic contract stuff that we need to know. Because we think these people are government, then we get all scared.
Yeah.
But we know they're criminals at the same time.
It's funny because when you travel to different countries, like with rainforests and stuff, these people walk around with machetes. Nobody calls it a weapon.
Because it's not. Alright, continuing. If the judge does not have his/her oath or affirmation readily available to verify that he is in fact an Article 3 judge with the lawfully prescribed power to adjudicate, then I am led to the conclusion that this is a private commercial court and we already know this. It's just we're giving them the opportunity to either expose themselves or to not. And when they don't show their oath, then clearly they're not constitutional, period. And then we already know they're not because coup d'etat 1861. To which all parties involved, with the exception of me, are co-conspirators in attempts to extort finances from me, thus chargeable under Title 18, United States Code, subsection 241, Conspiracy Against Rights. Title 18, United States Code, subsection 242, Deprivation of Rights under color of law. Title 18, United States Code, Chapter 41, Extortion and Threats, because they say if you don't show up, we're going to arrest you, we're going to put a warrant out for your arrest. Threats. Title 18, U.S. Code, subsection 880, Receiving the proceeds of extortion and others, because when they get, oh, pay this bond, and then that's extortion. And then they all split it. If this is an issue between myself and the state, then I also demand the contract between me and the state to be submitted for the record in my review that I am supposed to have violated to be summoned to this commercial court in the first instance. So again, produce the contract. If this is a commercial court, clearly I must be a party to a contract because commerce is dealing with contracts. So produce it for the record. And then again, if it has that all capital letters name on it, that's not you. This is where the nationality card comes in. To prove that you are who you say you are. The card don't make you, you make you. The card just proof that you say you are who you say you are. Period. Right. I have not been presented with any signed affidavit of claims or accusations made against me by an injured party, which would lead a grand jury to present an indictment to me based on the fact alone. So we're doing basic things. Based off this fact, it should be dismissed. Also based off that other fact too, and this one right here, you know what I mean? Just multiple points of constitutional law stating that this should be dismissed. Clearly a violation of due process is happening. And I'll go into like a personal thing too after this real quick, right? Boom, boom, boom. Based on the fact alone, per the 5th and 6th Amendment, my right to due process has been violated. In this alleged case, these alleged charges and claims must be dropped, dismissed, and or otherwise acquitted, and then to be submitted on the public record. And since they're private, it's in quotation marks because they're not really public, but they are public, but they're still private, right? Whereas I state, proclaim, and declare the following to be true, correct, not misleading, and not intended to be presented for any misrepresented, colored, or improper use or purpose, whereas I preserve my right to not have to answer to any colorable charges, nor appear, because when you appear, you're sued, or tribunals in regards to this matter will be under threat, duress, or coercion, whereas jurisdiction and the validity of these alleged charges, claims, and other accusations will be challenged. This document is to be taken and viewed as a special appearance. Now I'm pausing on that for a reason, because people think special appearance is you physically showing up. And that is the special appearance to challenge jurisdiction, but this affidavit in itself has your essence on it. So it is you making a special appearance on the record. Because you're signing it and you're putting your thumbprint on it, which is your seal, which connects it to a human being. So clearly that's you. So when you file this paperwork and they still threaten you, you already did, on the record, you did what you needed to do. You don't need to be fearful. So people keep running around with their heads cut off because they don't understand the game. So again, this document is to be taken and viewed as a special appearance, as there is no proof that there are any real charges being made against me or my estate, submitted by my hand with a sound mind, because they always try to question the integrity of our people's minds, doing them, taking them to get mentally screened, when they don't have jurisdiction over you anyway, so why would you agree to get screened by them? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But you're agreeing to it by showing up. Period. Right? And then you sign all rights reserved, UCC 1S308, a free Moorish American in full life, meaning not civil or mortus, meaning not Negro, Black, Colored, Indian, West Indian, Spanish, Latino, African American, and solo proprio in my own homeland, in proper persona, meaning in my own proper person, sui juris at law. And then you send courtesy copies to the so-called judge, because he's a constitutional officer, right? Allegedly. And you can put other people on notice, the United States Attorney General, the Inter-American Commissioner on Human Rights, and the United Nations Commissioner on Human Rights, and the International Court of Justice to get it outside of the United States private venue.
Yeah, because if we keep playing the game here, again, who knows?
Exactly, and they can just get rid of the record.
Yeah.
And others, you can send it to, if you got Moors that live right near you, send it to them. You know what I mean? Send it to a temple if you go to a temple, whatever, Grand Sheet. And certified mail too, so they sign for it.
Yeah. So, to conclude, don't try to dance around this.
Yeah, exactly. Because remember, you're dealing with the record, so when you get the certified mail that they signed, that they got, that's proof that they got this. Yeah. And what I like to do is, I don't know if it's on this one, I like to put the, I think it is on here. Maybe it's not. Let's see if I have one. I like to put the, right here, the certified mail document, the certified mail number at the bottom of the affidavits. Because, certified mail, because when you do the certified mail, you get that number. So each person you send it to, this document is attached to all of those. Yeah. So you can never say you didn't get it, because I got the certified receipt that you got it. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Because we're dealing with the record at all times. That's what the Europeans do, right? So those principles are how you enforce the Constitution and the treaty. Because the treaty never granted them any jurisdiction over us, period. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is what Moors need to know. And we can go into...
It's crazy, because it's kind of like if you show up to court, after you did this paperwork, if you show up to court, you're really just...
By agreement.
Agreeing to be there and agreeing that you're bringing your body as collateral.
Yeah, unless you're threatening, they arrest you, which they do to our people. But even then, you still stand on it. What else are you gonna stand on? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to read. You can turn the light on. It took about 3 years to turn on. Read this American Jurisprudence, 2nd edition, state and federal, because this talks about the treaty. So any more talking about treaty don't apply to us. Clearly it does, right? So let me just go here. Is there a book in here?
Yeah, I was looking at that.
I always have books in other books.
Inception.
Bookception. All right. Let's see. I have it all highlighted, so. That's not it. Is this the right one? Ah, this isn't the right one. Left it at my house.
Oh.
You know what? I have pictures of it because I actually sent it to someone. So I just go into my Facebook real quick. And the guy was like, I wasn't sure. He was like afraid to message me or whatever, because he said he was dealing with some Moors that was talking about their Moroccan consulate, and if he wanted their help with the affidavit with him facing the gun charges, he has to pay them 5,000 notes.
Whoa.
And you're supposed to be a consulate, like.
Yeah.
And then didn't Drew always say, free national standards and principles make the man, right? So how are you going to charge your brother who's in adversity?
Yeah.
5,000 notes to help him with some legal stuff.
Hey.
And clearly our people have been going through this stuff. How you doing?
So tired of being late.
That's all right.
I really apologize. I got a car though now to sleep in.
Wow, congratulations.
That's a good thing.
All right. Let me try
So what did I miss?
I'm just going into enforcement of the Constitution and the treaties. And I'll, once the camera goes off, I'll go over everything again with you.
All right.
But, so for this example, I'm talking about how some guy, he was going through weapons charges, and some Moors try to charge him $5,000 for help. That's BS.
It's supposed to be free.
Yeah, that's BS.
Knowledge.
Right? So this one is from American Jurisprudence, 2nd edition, Conflicts of Law, Constitutional Law, subsection 1 to 359.
Do you have any personal information on there?
Nah, you can come to the screen. So this one right here, let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, I can't zoom in. So it says, state statutory provisions must yield to any applicable provisions of any valid treaty of United States with foreign countries, continuing part of supreme law of the land. And that's subsection 75 of the constitutional law. Even state laws governing essentially local matters must yield to valid treaties when there is conflict between them. Treaty rights and use of international boundary streams cannot be interfered by state statutes, and treaty is to be. Oh, I read that one because that was in the affidavit. All right, and then here's another one. There's more. Treaty lawfully entered into stands on same footing of supremacy as do Constitution and laws of the United States, and it is generally self-operating in that it requires no legislation by either Congress or the state. Treaty must be regarded as part of law of state as much as are state's own statutes, and it may override power of state even in respect of great body of private relations. Courts cannot go behind treaty for purpose of annulling its effect and operation. So again, the treaty supersedes even state law. So again, no pale-skinned European can judge you on your own homeland. There's a treaty that is in existence right now. You see how these Europeans have been in supreme violation? And how we have been in supreme violation by not enforcing our own law? And they keep sending us to so-called jail for these bogus crimes?
Yeah.
That no crime has ever taken place? You know what I'm saying? So I kind of want to go into this right here. This is what, first let me go into this. So this is from, I was letting someone use my car, and then they hit someone, right? And then that person got an attorney to try to sue me or whatever, right? So this is for, I'm just going to hide my mailing location and this guy's name. Because, I don't want his information on it, right? Oh, let me block that too. So this is the attorney that was trying to come after me for some stuff, right?
Del Toro, huh?
Yeah. Trying to, saying they're representing for personal injuries sustained as a result of an automobile incident that occurred on December 31st. This is the new year too. I was heated, right? You know, this attorney sent me this, signed by them. Look at their signature. This isn't made up. Look at their signature.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what I responded to them. And they didn't even respond to this.
Yes, we're done. We're done playing.
Yeah, so I won. Period.
I need your help with my car as well.
Right? No, but this is a person who was trying to sue me for injuries. And when I spoke to her, she was fine. And then, you know, she called the police. I was like, I got my insurance card. Don't call the police. I'll be right back. Because it was right near my house. I had to walk to my house because I was letting my friend use my car. I had to walk to my house, get the insurance thing, come back. We was going to deal with it regular, right? But she called the police. I was like, all right. And so they let her go. And then they were trying to steal my car and all that kind of stuff. It was crazy, right? So this person's trying to, you know, bring charges against
me. It's a private side, so they was trying to take your car from you.
Right? So this is my response to them. And I was still learning, so I call myself an Afghan and stuff like that. So I said, I, Jamal, state for the published record, my declaration of status, Aboriginal and Indigenous natural person. This is old, so this is when I was like first learning, so it's different from what I just read. Right?
Yeah.
I am in proper persona sui juris and solo proprio and in full life and not cognate with any nom de guerre, because they referenced that name, that's not me. Any nom de guerre, which is a war name, or any other such like fictitious entity or artificial legal construct, nor a man of straw, as written, typed, photocopied, or scribed in all capital letters. I am a natural dweller and natural citizen in, of, and on the lands of my forefathers, North America. Being a Moorish American national, I will be referred to my free national appellation and title, Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey, or you may refer to me as Mr. Bey if you want, right? Let it be known that on the 20th day of January 2016, a letter was accepted for value, noting that Anthony E. Del Toro would be representing Vilmar J. Feliz, whatever, with respect to personal injury sustained from an automobile incident. I'm enforcing the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between Morocco and the United States, 1787-1836, also known as Treaty of Peace of Amity and Commerce. Whereas the Europeans have been granted permission to conduct business on my ancestral estate by the Sultan of the Moroccan Empire, me being an Aboriginal and Indigenous Moorish American national, and controversy between Moors and Christian Union citizens, this matter must be seen in a lawfully prescribed venue, council court, supported by Article 3, Section 1 and Section 2 of the Constitution for the United States of America, and its Republican form of government, supported by Article 4, Section 4, as well as the United States Code of Law, Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 141 of General and Permanent Character, A222141. That's council courts again. If the court is not consular, and this is a kind of a repeat of what we just read because it still applies in this matter too. If the court is not consular or constitutional with treaties, it has no jurisdiction, period.
No jurisdiction.
Any attempt to adjudicate on the part of anyone being a judge, prosecutor, or officer of the court in such controversies is operating on color of law and color of authority, and thus fraudulent, being subject to United States Codes of Law, Title 18, Chapter 13, Section 241 and 242. Furthermore, states cannot make treaties and therefore have no jurisdiction. Being of a treaty nature, this jurisdiction is federal. Any jurisdiction claimed without mutual agreement between prescribed proper form is void of law. Federal and state officials must set up council courts. This is repetitive, right? And this is what I sent to them. And then they didn't respond. So they were going to sue me for damages, and then they never responded. And this person never responded. This attorney never responded.
Like
period. So there was nothing for me to fear. I sent it in, and then it's 2018 now, and I'm like, oh shit. They still didn't pursue it.
What year was the accident? 2000 and...
What was it? Well, it happened...
Because you're saying it's 2018.
It happened December... what was it, right? December 31st was the incident. And then on this, it says January 18, 2017.
So it's been about 2 years.
And they haven't pursued nothing.
And they only have 3 years for it.
And they haven't pursued anything.
See,
period.
I got 1 more year to pursue mine against...
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when you enforce your rights, they yield.
Oh,
because they can't do anything.
Someone hit me.
Yeah, but I'm talking about this matter right
Someone
now.
hit...
Someone who was using my car hit someone else.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
And you're defending yourself.
They were trying to sue me, so I responded. And I'm good.
You didn't even put the person who was driving your car in there.
Because I don't need to.
It was your car, okay.
Because they were coming at me.
Okay. They didn't come at the person who was driving.
No, they did,
came
but
to you.
they did. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about me enforcing the treaty and the Constitution. That's
Okay.
it. And they didn't. Yeah, and they didn't respond, and they didn't pursue anything, and they never summoned me to anywhere. So proof that Constitution and treaty works. What more proof do you want?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And then again, well, the set situation, we challenged them, and they got dismissed. And then it's even embossed by the Superior Court.
Oh, so you challenge him basically.
Yeah, this was from the set situation, and it says, and we asked them, you know, we asked the so-called judge to produce for the record that he was a judge, knowing that, you know, there's no real money in circulation because they took all the money out. So prove that they took any money, and it's not like this stuff doesn't work. It's just people need to understand that A, they're criminals, and B, it's not the paper alone that's going to get it dismissed. It's you. These are my words. This attorney knew, like, I didn't just copy and paste this offline.
Yeah.
He yielded, stopped. Because I said, you will address me as Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. You ain't addressing me as nothing else. Or Mr. Bey. That's it. Nothing else. And then what?
But
Nothing
bottom line is, you're giving me my title. So
and they don't want that on the record.
So you're gonna understand my status.
So
and then,
I think she's like 23.
And then here's another situation, right? Because we're dealing with contracts. Because this is when they, you know, smash my window and stuff like that.
Who smashed your window? Was you at a club or something?
No. All right. So this is because they get people on like criminal bonds and stuff like that. So we're just gonna go into like, huh?
You do criminal bonds?
No. Listen.
Like,
right? Listen. This is in regards to the matter when they did whatever they did to me, right? So let me just block my phone number and address and stuff like that, right?
Is there anything else on there?
Nah, this is all from this state of whatever, Connecticut. So this is the criminal appearance bond. This is what they try to bond you to, so you show up. That's not my handwriting, and they put it backwards. So they put my first name and they put Talib Abdullah Bey here. So, but it's still my free national name.
Yeah.
And I never showed up to this either. And they stopped sending me stuff. They stopped threatening me. We're going to arrest you. And then I even have a response. If you continue to threaten me, I'm going to take you to international court. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, right, and let's deal with the laws of contract. Let's deal with the laws of jurisdiction. In order for people to have jurisdiction, the crime has to be clearly laid out and written so that a simple person can understand what the charges are. What does that say? Crimes, charges. Is that? Do you know what that is? Are those crimes? What is that? Because if I punch someone in the face, it's going to say
simple assault or battery.
Punched in this. So Jamal punched someone in the face.
Like code
yeah, numbers. Numbers.
Numbers.
So that's a violation of law. Period. Then,
because you don't understand.
For signed, what does that say? TDC. Right? Who's that? For the police, who is that?
Yeah.
Who's TDC?
It's only my name written in someone else's handwriting, and then no one else.
Yeah.
Is this a contract?
That's a high school play.
Is this a contract? Can this contract be enforced?
No, you didn't.
Why? Why can't it be enforced?
You weren't a party to that.
And?
So how are you?
And it was made under what? Threat and duress and coercion, right? That's what TDC.
Of your national
and none of this, exactly. None of this is in my handwriting, so clearly I'm not a party to any of this.
And then what laws are they stated with those numbers? Like from what book, from what source?
Exactly. And then what? Every man is free and independent of all laws. He's not bound by any laws created by his fellow men without his consent or agreement. So if this is just state of Connecticut private stuff, I'm not a citizen of the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
So your private stuff don't apply to me.
Yeah. What is you talking about?
You see what I'm saying? So, and this is in a criminal appearance bondage, a debt, which our people have been signing, agreeing to be sureties to show up. But clearly, if you know, none of that is your handwriting. There's no other person on here.
So they just mustered up some paper with some crazy
So someone put your name on a contract and you're going to agree to it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And they stated rules and stipulations that you don't have access to because they put some serial numbers from God knows where.
Exactly.
And you say, sure.
That, in a nutshell, is enforcing the Constitution. And ask me if it worked.
Well,
Ask me for it.
you're sitting here.
You're free.
So, you know what I mean? It's not that complicated. It's they're threatening to arrest me. Okay, keep doing that. And everything I sent a copy to the United Nations and Inter-American Human Rights. Like,
Yeah.
that's what we're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm using my situation, and here's the certified stuff. All the receipts from the post office, all signed by these people. This is building a case.
Yeah.
We could do a class action suit on
So
this.
basically,
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing, is building a case without the full knowledge of the Moorish rights.
Yeah, but
You got to bring other nations into it, though. You got to bring the United Nations in, so
yeah.
we have some type of documentation that we've been dealing with this for how
so
long?
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you can't sue them and try to sue as the all capital letters name. It doesn't make sense. You can't sue me as my laptop. It's my property.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to bring charges in all capital letters name, you can't. Right? So again, that's enforcing the Constitution. Folks here. Make sure I got all my papers in order. Right, and it's not complicated. And no, don't let no one charge you $5,000 to say what I just said for free and show you proof that I used it.
Plus, the tools are out there for you to teach yourself.
Yeah. And let me see. Oh yeah, and here's the certified mail. Certified, signed from the Anthony Del Toro guy. Look,
To make sure
With
that
the
he got
serial
it.
number?
yeah, and he signed it. Look.
That you received your mail.
Yeah.
Is your information on there?
My information? No, it's on the back. But so here's the Anthony Del Toro guy, signed and dated. Agent. Notes to the agents, notes to the principal, right? They got it. And then there's other addresses on there because I sent it to other people too.
Yes, I saved my mailing copies as well. When I was going for my exercise, someone responded back that they received it.
Yeah.
You know?
Because we're always dealing with the record. So that's my little tidbit on council courts, because we need council courts because our people are going through this every day. Or we gotta, and we need to have a venue for our people to go to because we're stuck in the situation with these colonizers. But we also need to know law. You can't enforce what you don't know. And I also want to go into just some res judicata, just so people know, because I know some people just don't know. So I'm going to use the projector again.
Okay.
Good. And here's this is what you call stare decisis or res judicata, right? Res judicata, res is a thing, judicata is something that's already been adjudicated, so something that has already been declared, right? Stare decisis, stare means to look fixedly at, decisive means something that's decided. So the Constitution is an example of stare decisis. These court cases are examples of res judicata. So here's res judicata from the Cruden v. Neal. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. So again, I'm using that word consent. And private statutes of the state of Rhode Island, state of Connecticut, state of New Jersey, state of New Hampshire, state of whatever, don't apply to you. Unless you agree to be black, Negro, colored, Indian, whatever. Like, that's consent.
So, quick question, where it says he's not bound by any institutions, does that stand for like the ACI?
Exactly, anything.
Does that stand for like Butler Hospital?
Yes.
All of that?
Yes.
It's all corporation, it's institutions.
Yes. Unless you agree, period.
To be in
and if you agree,
part of the
and if you agree, you can't charge them because you agreed.
That's why, alright,
You see what I'm saying?
Just keep the person on 3 days with no sickness.
That's good, that's good, that's good.
With
That's real
no
good.
nicotine patches.
Alright.
It's crazy, I need so much water.
That's good.
Nuts.
Alright. The right to park or travel is part of the liberty of which the natural person, citizen, cannot be deprived without the right of due process under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. More stare decisis. State police power extends only to immediate threats to public safety, health, welfare, etc., which driving and speeding are not.
Wow.
So they're not threats. So you can't even be stopped for it.
For driving and speeding.
I mean, you can if you're driving reckless, but if you're just speeding, you
reckless
can't.
driving.
Unless it's a threat to public safety. If there's no one on the highway, you're going 80 in a 65.
That's 15. That's only 15 miles an hour.
But you're not threatening anyone. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you're driving on a curb and stuff like that, then clearly you need to be.
That's
below.
reckless. Yeah.
Yeah. So traffic infractions are not a crime. So when they pull you over for speeding, that's an infraction. That's not a crime. You can't serve time for it.
Traffic infractions, which is
Like speeding or something, or not stopping at a stop sign.
roll and stop.
Yeah.
Like a roll
None of that.
and stop.
You can't even be stopped for it.
Wow.
Unless-
I got stopped and I got a ticket for it and I end up having to pay it.
Well, that's what they do. That's their job.
Wow, right on the boulevard. I hit a roll and stop.
Right? Under the United States Republic's constitutional system of government, and upon the individuality and intelligence of the citizen, remember the intelligence
Of this sleeve, no plan.
of the citizen, the state does not claim to control one's conduct to others, leaving one the sole judge as to all that affects oneself. So again, that's also enforcing the right to contract. As stated by the Supreme Court of Illinois, in a case involving the same sect and an ordinance similar to the present one, a person cannot be compelled to purchase through a license fee or license tax the privilege freely granted by the Constitution. So again, if it says you have the right to bear arms, you do not need a license for that.
Oh, so you don't need a license to have a gun in your house?
No, you do not. Because the word license means permission. You can't give someone permission to do something they already have the right to do.
To protect
Exactly.
themselves. Yeah.
That again goes back to every person is, not bound by any laws by someone else. Like, as an example, right? The rise of the Moors, the rules that we're abiding by, doesn't apply to anyone who's not a part of this.
Okay.
Period. And we can't enforce that on anyone.
Yeah.
Now, when it says license or fee or tax, does that also go for cars? Not just guns.
Yes.
Not like OSHA 10 construction
exactly.
classes, all of that.
And then when
you have
people-
to pay to get registered.
Exactly. And when people want to do work on their own house, they have to get permits,
building permits.
Yes.
How
It's
do I
all
need
a
a building
fraud. It's
permit
all a fraud.
if it's my property that I just
Exactly.
bought? All right, I get.
But here's the thing. People don't even own their own property because they get mortgages, and mortgages isn't ownership of property. So you gotta understand, it's all by agreement.
Oh, that's why this lady at the post office was just telling me, oh, I'm late on my mortgage. But she's Caucasian, so she's not ingenious.
Yeah, but this affects everyone.
Yeah.
Not just us, this
They're-
affects Europeans too.
Yeah, everybody's under mortgages, so they're agreeing to debts and
That
rules
they-
and regulations
Yeah.
that they don't have to put themselves on.
Alright, so let me continue. The power to impose a license tax on the exercise of the freedoms is indeed as potent as the power of censorship, what the court has repeatedly struck down. So again, you can't impose a license on people to exercise their freedoms. The freedom to travel. You don't need a license for that.
Oh, this is
Driving
like
is commerce.
Corey Dickens, when she was driving in her car.
Again, speeding, driving without a license, wrong plates or no plates, no registration, no tags, etc., have been held to be non-arrestable offenses. Can't be arrested for it. No state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, nor waterways, transporting his vehicles and personal property for whether recreation or business, but by being subject only to local regulation, i.e. safety caution, traffic lights, speed limits, etc. Traveling is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurance. Now you gotta understand this is what the law is, but we are dealing with criminals. This is also why Drew Ali said where there is unity, there is strength, so we can combat this. This is also why in the General Civil Orders, they talked about a voice loud enough. You get what I'm saying? To combat this fraud that's being perpetrated on our land. Period. A person, now look at this. A person in quotations, and driving is in quotations. Why? Because in law there are two types of persons. Natural and artificial.
So that must mean artificial.
No, it's just it's in quotations so that you know that there's a difference. And then driving is in quotation because when most people are traveling, they just use the word driving because that's the word we've been taught to use. To place us by oral consent in a commercial venue. Because if you look up the definition of driving in Black's Law Dictionary, it mentions commerce. That means you can be regulated. You get what I'm saying? So again, a person driving in an automobile. Now there's a difference between automobile and motor vehicle, which is they use the word motor vehicle because that's commerce again.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Cannot be stopped to see if he or she is licensed to drive unless there is reasonable suspicion the person has engaged in criminal conduct. So again, they can't even pull you over without the right to due process. Which speeding isn't a crime, so they can't pull you over for speeding. Period. But what do they do anyway?
Pull you over.
Because they're not law.
So now, what about in a situation where you have a license plate? Because technically you are agreeing to their rules because you have that.
But they still have to abide by due process. Period.
So they still have to.
So even if you have a commercial license plate, they still have
to produce an injured party or crime or an emergency.
Because what is the supreme law of the land? The Constitution. Doesn't the Constitution say right to due process of law?
Yep.
So again, Jorali said, bring us back into the constitutional fold. The United States Supreme Court ruled that a police officer could not arrest a citizen for merely refusing to present identification. Period. You don't have to identify yourself to these people. Period. A right which is free and open to all is not the subject of a license or tax. Now this is where you can do this for bearing arms, for traveling, but also for medicinal plants. Rights of indigenous people, Article 24 says we have the right to preserve all medicinal plants. So we don't need no dang on state of Rhode Island medicinal license, period. We're Aboriginal and indigenous people, but guess what happens when our people don't know this? They apply for it. Guess what happens when our people think that they're Negro, Black, Colored, Spanish, Indian, West Indian, whatever? They apply for these things. So they're agreeing by consent to be regulated by this stuff. And if you got more than 24 plants, then you're agreeing that these people can kick down your door and arrest you. And then they kick down our doors and arrest us, period, because we're under occupation.
I'm glad I got rid of my license.
But that's the thing, the general civil orders, you don't need to get rid of anything because it's all void. Right?
Oh, wow.
And then again, traveling in an automobile on the public roads was not a threat to public safety or health and constituted no hazard to the public. And such a driver owed nothing more than due care as regard to tort or negligence to the public, and the owner owed no other duty to the public. He and his auto having equal rights to and on the roadways, highways as horses and wagons. The same right is still substantive rule in that speeding, running stop signs, traveling without license plates or registration are not threats to public safety and thus not arrestable offenses. But what is the issue? These people are colonists on our land, and they thrive on putting us through this fraudulent system. Because you'll often see only one or two more standing up. We need a loud voice to enforce the Constitution. Because if there's a contract and one party is not enforcing that contract, then clearly the other party isn't obligated to that contract. So again, the Constitution is the treaty is between us and them. So if we're not enforcing the treaty, they're not obligated to it, even though they still are. Because when you're dealing with government, you're supposed to deal with morals. And read the so-called Constitution for the state of Rhode Island, they deal with morals and ethics, right in the articles. So they're still in breach, but we're also in breach for not enforcing it. This is why Jorali said, I desire for my people back into the constitutional fold, and to force our Constitution. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rule making or legislation which would abrogate them. Persons are not the subject of commerce. This is where
we're not.
This is where I get upset with the so-called Indians, where they say you need a tribal ID and a number. That's commerce. For them to recognize your bloodline, that's a fraud. So again, persons are not subject to commerce. And not being important goods, they do not fall within the meaning founded upon the Constitution of a power given to Congress to regulate commerce.
They do not fall within the meaning upon the Congress.
So what does that mean? We're not subject to commerce.
Commerce.
Therefore, we can't be taxed.
Oh, so that's why that guy was fighting with the cigarettes.
Okay.
I want to say where was with the state police, the Indian that ended up.
Yeah, but listen.
He didn't have to pay tax.
No, you need to understand this.
Like,
Indians agreed to be subject. Look it up. Look up. Write this down so you look this up. Look up the joint. Well, just try to remember this, and you can just watch the video. Look up the joint memorandum of understanding between the Narragansett Indians and the state of Rhode Island. Just watch the video, and you'll look this up, right? Look up the joint memorandum of understanding between the Indians and the state of Rhode Island, and they agreed that the state of Rhode Island's corporate law will apply to them and their people. They agreed to it. So if he's claiming to be Indian and trying to argue anything, you can't argue what you agreed to. You see the trick? It's consent and agreement. So yeah, you're right on a moral aspect that he's fighting the taxes, but they agreed to it.
He agreed to it. He gave consent.
By even calling himself Indian, they agreed to it. Period. There's no debate. You can't get around it.
And the same thing with calling yourself Black,
Exactly.
African American, Latin American.
Right. And then, some of this gets repetitive, but these are the things that our people need to know. Right? If the state converts a liberty into a privilege, the citizen can engage in that right with impunity. This is why they say, in possession of a weapon instead of bearing arms. Because it's your right to bear arms.
Yeah.
So they're getting you out of that constitutional venue of saying weapons possession. They're getting out of our people, have the right to maintain medicinal plants. Cannabis is a medicinal plant. A weed is something unwanted.
So would you be able to switch that law to weapons possession and the right to bear arms?
No, you don't switch the law. You make it. You clarify that you're bearing arms, not in possession of a weapon.
Okay.
And this is a little part that you missed, but when the camera comes off again, I'll go over again with you because they bring the weapons charges, but you clarify for the record that you didn't have any weapons. So again, when they pull you over for driving, you clarify for the record you weren't operating in a commercial capacity. Even if you do have the commercial plates on you, just because you have it doesn't necessarily mean, like if, let's say you have your car, right, and you got the license plates on it because you use your car for a taxi.
Some plates on it right now.
Well, let me just give you an example. Let's say you use your car as a taxi. Unless you have passengers, which is someone paying you, then you're clearly not operating in your commercial capacity. You could be traveling to your way home. You see what I'm saying? So you still argue, well, I wasn't driving because I didn't have any passengers. I had an automobile guest who isn't paying me. You see what I'm saying? So you correct your language on the record, on the piece of paper. Because they're bringing their corporate charges, which they can only do. You take it out of that venue by using the correct words and principles. You see what I'm saying?
Being Aboriginal and Indigenous with
So,
English words.
If the state converts a liberty into a privilege, the citizen can engage in that right with impunity, meaning you can't be charged for it. Right? More stuff. Inasmuch every government is an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only, a government can interface only with other artificial persons. This is why they always put that all capital letters name on it. The imaginary having neither actuality nor substance is foreclosed from creating and attaining party with the tangible. So what's that mean? An artificial person can't sue you. Therefore, the state of Rhode Island can't be versus Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. Period. It just can't. Just like Rise of the Moors can't be against Jamal. Because Rise of the Moors is an artificial construct. Now you, I don't want to say your name for the record, or you could be against me because you're human beings. But not Walmart. It can't be Walmart versus state of versus Jamal. You know,
it doesn't make sense. How's there an injured party? How can you injure
something
a
that's not real?
corporation?
So when they pulled me over, they said I violated the highway. Fraud. And when they said the state of Connecticut feels fraud. You see what I'm saying? Where was I? The legal manifestation is that. The legal manifestation of this is that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court, etc., can concern itself with anything other than corporate artificial person and the contracts between them. This is why they always put your name in all capital letters. And then again, it's not even your name. It's a homonym. It's something that sounds like your name. To try to hold your body as surety because you think you're it. Period.
This is crazy.
It's not crazy. When you say it's crazy, it dismisses them like they don't know what they're doing when they absolutely know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean the fact that when you think about it, they have you pick from Christian names, and then they have your parents sign you off, and then they have your parents raise you thinking that that's you.
Exactly, but your parents don't even sign you off because that contract is void, period, because you can't convert the living into the dead. That baby didn't agree to that. And your mother didn't agree to it because chances are she was incompetent. As it comes to law.
Educated, yes.
Exactly. And that becomes an unconscionable contract, which is a contract that no man or woman in their sound mind would ever agree to. Because now that we know what it is, we know we wouldn't agree to that.
Yeah.
So that's an unconscionable contract. Period.
Do you know?
And then a waiver of rights must be declared that you know you're waiving your rights. Did that anywhere on that contract say I know I'm waiving my rights on that birth certificate?
No.
So therefore it's not an enforceable contract. Exactly. Therefore it's non-enforceable. And then with the general civil orders, anything with them is void, period. Ab initio, from the beginning. Period.
And absolutely criminal. How do you sign something with somebody that can't even...
An infant, a minor.
Hold
minors can't enter into contracts. Right? So this is why people need to understand the rules that govern contracts. Right? And then continuing, the state is prohibited from violating substantive rights, and it cannot do by any power, i.e. the police power, period. Right? Nor indirectly. Leave that unknown. Where rights by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rule making or legislation which would abrogate them. That's, again, Article 6, anything to the contrary notwithstanding. It is not the duty of the police to protect you. Their job is to protect the corporation and arrest code breakers. Oh,
so that's exactly why we have the problems that we have with them.
And so, remember when we were talking last week about the so-called guy talking about we need more police? The duty of the police is not to protect you.
Only their corporations.
Exactly.
So if we recognize ourselves as a corporation...
No, if we recognize ourselves as a people, then we elect our own sheriffs. We're not corporations. You see what I'm saying? You can't say you're a corporation because you're not. You're a human being. You're a divine being. You have flesh and blood. You're not a corporation. So I'm not trying to dismiss what you're saying. I'm trying to make sure you're correct. Because if you're not correct, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
And then anything you say after that is, you can be written off as incompetent. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now stand by because we got to do a battery transition, so we got to cut the film real quick. So, you know, it said it is not the duty of the police, blah, 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 and I talk about this in my book, because these people are, in fact, inquisitioners. Right? I didn't put this on my cover for nothing. They're Christian crusaders. What does this say? It is not the duty of the police to protect you. Is this guy protecting that guy?
No.
Don't they just do this to our people all the damn time? It's their job to, just like it was this person's job to make sure you're worshiping Jesus every Sunday. Don't go against whatever. It's the same thing. There is no difference, right? So let me try to just find this in my book real quick, right? Because I go into it and I expound on the law case and give ancillary supports to support that law case as well. All right. So it's under the chapter called "The Trick" in my book, and here's some papal bulls. Here's some papal bulls that recognize the Knights Templar, who are the police, to even do what they do, to steal our state and rob us and beat us up in the street. Yeah, and if you do any research on the Inquisition, you'll see that the Knights, they used to harass merchants, heavily tax people. This is what the police do. There is no difference, right? Let's see if I can find it. And I even mentioned the Inquisition, right? So modern police ticket you for speeding, no license, etc. Although the courts have declared that police can only stop you if you committed a crime or you're suspected of committing one. Yet they will steal your property if you do not have registration or a license. Although the courts have already declared that they are not necessary and you cannot be arrested for not having them. Right? The modern day police, the police are the modern day Knights Templar, guised as men and women of law, although they violate the supreme law of the land daily. Knights Templars during the Inquisition and Crusades often kidnapped Moors off the streets and accused them of crimes they did not commit, oftentimes torturing them until they pled guilty even though they were innocent. Now, don't take my word for it. Read any book on the Inquisition and the Christian Crusades. Period. These tactics were also used against us here in America. So-called black men, Moors, would be found guilty and are still to this day for crimes we/they did not commit. One of the most popular crimes/claims made against Moors, so-called blacks here, were to agree to the raping of a so-called white woman. This would often stir up fiery rage of emotions amongst the people, making it easier to prosecute and oftentimes hang an innocent man. Is this not true? Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. There is no difference. Right? The bishops or magistrates of the realm, the governors of the state and municipal judges, would often hold Knights Templars, local police, state police, not guilty for crimes perpetrated against the public. This is why police can kill people on the streets today and be found not guilty for murdering and get paid time off. Isn't that what happens today?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
mm-hmm. Another reason why we need counselor courts.
Exactly.
Yep.
And people think this is a game. This isn't a game.
Yep.
Right?
They're losing lives.
People are dying. Human beings are dying.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of you call yourself black or more or not. Just when you call yourself black, you're agreeing to be subject.
Yep.
So just don't call yourself that.
And then you're handing their own people over to their own courts and saying, please, can you give us some justice?
And then black people wonder why these police don't get held accountable for their actions. Because it is not the duty of the police to protect you. That's why they get paid time off and they don't go to jail.
They're handing us over to their own courts.
Right? Let me see. I'll talk about other stuff, how you make their money. And then the word Inquisition means to question or to investigate. FBI. Federal Bureau of Investigation. And then the American constitutional interpretation, it granted Congress no authority to do anything like the Federal Reserve or FBI. Why? Because they stopped being Congress in 1861. They're colonists. Right? Right? And then, is that the case? Right? In the Sapp versus Tallahassee case, it is clear that the duty of the police is to protect corporate assets, enforce corporate law, and arrest those who break them, code breakers. In the case, Miss Sapp was attempting to hold the Tallahassee police responsible for not assisting her upon them witnessing two men enter a hotel shortly after her and running out moments later after robbing and beating her. So the police saw these two men walk into the hotel after she did, and then they ran out later. They seen it, and they didn't do anything. Why? It is not the duty of the police to protect you. Right? So logically, she sought remedy because most of our people think the police are public servants, right?
Yeah.
That's what people think. Right? The court decided that since the police had no special duty nor contractual obligation to her, they then were not liable.
Wow.
Which would be a conflict of law, considering they, the police, may claim to be law enforcement officers. In the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics / Oath, in the first paragraph, this is what it reads. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind.
And they're not following.
Because they're not law enforcement.
Yeah, they're not law.
Period.
Enforcers.
Right? And then I continue with some of the rest, right? And I just expound upon it, just, right? What more do you want? So when that guy running for any position talk about, oh, we need more police.
We need more policy enforcers.
So basically he's not, like she said, he's not challenging the system. He's for the system. For his own pockets. And think about it. He's talking about parking meters. And the only reason why I would have an argument with the parking meters is because if everyone knew it was free to park anyway, they would need no order. So they make money.
No. There would be order. Because people are logical. Well, most people.
Yeah, they would
if we're using our reasoning mind, obviously there's gonna be order, right? You said there's no order, right? Was there a government shutdown?
Yes, there is.
Was there chaos?
No.
Because, right, when you work at your so-called job, right, and the manager's not there, doesn't things just run smoothly? It's in human nature to be orderly.
You're right. You're right.
That's just an excuse For the uncivil, like people make that.
Especially if you're living by the 5 principles.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Exactly. No, but your intentions were right.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to help you correct the way you're thinking. You know what I'm saying? So your intentions were still right, but people like again, most people, right? Go to your job and your manager's not there. It doesn't just still run, it still operates.
Yeah.
Like when I was in the military and our CEO wasn't in that day, things still ran smoothly. If there was no staff in the office, things still ran smoothly. If the sergeant was gone, the platoon sergeant, things still ran smoothly. You know what I'm saying? So that whole thing, if there's no parking meters, there'll be chaos. Fraud.
Yeah.
They just want money.
Yeah.
When we can use that money to bettering our lands, ourselves, our bodies, health-wise.
But that's part of the Inquisition. And then look, this is going on right here. Look, this law case. If they bring you to a so-called court, if this is a criminal matter, watch out because you're annoying. With this part. If this is a criminal matter, there must exist an injured party, of which I would be obligated to make remedy to. If this is a civil matter, there must be an injured party or property, even unto a preponderance of evidence. If this is an administrative court, traffic court, which means commerce, as well, there must be an injured party as defined in established rule of law submitted in public and as Exhibit A. You know what I'm saying? And then the only law enforcement are the sheriffs, which is Sharif, which is Sheikh, which is Muslim. Yeah.
They're not the real sheriff.
This is why, because they're not law enforcement. This is why in the video when they pulled me over, I said, "Give me the sheriff." Even though they're part of the system too, they're not going to enforce law, but still, we're going to hold them to their duty too. The faster and more start holding these people accountable.
Because at least the sheriff didn't say, "Oh, I didn't know what was going on."
Yeah. But we need a loud voice. I mean, one person just doing it is like, "Oh, shut this guy up," or that girl up.
Did you get that letter done?
No, I didn't do that yet.
that's that one voice, which is you, isn't working if you don't get that letter.
Yeah, but I got the video. Sure. I mean, that's also being out there.
But that's reaching the youth.
Yeah, but youth on YouTube too.
That's honestly why we're utilizing this, because there's a lot of youth on.
And I kind of want to expound on this, like, if parents are wondering why children are rebelling in school, it's because A, John D. Rockefeller, Frederick T. Gates, General Education Board, right? They're not going to teach us anything. And then B, Allah sent these spirits here to fight colonialism. That's why they're rebelling. You know what I mean? It's in their nature to do so. It's just most parents don't realize that there's a system that's corrupt. I mean, they know it's corrupt, but they don't know the ins and outs. So they just see their child as being rebellious. Oh, listen to it. No, they came here to fight. Yeah, you can see a lot of these young people. They came here to fight. They just need to know that this is what we're fighting. Not each other, not.
And we have our own laws. Yeah,
we're not fighting Europeans. We're fighting colonizers who are against us. Because Drew Ali said all American citizens. If you're a European, you came here, you abide by our law, we recognize you. Once you stop abiding by our law, you need to leave and go home. That's what we're fighting. We're fighting this. Not other Europeans who abide by our law and respect our law. We're fighting this. Stop beating up our people. This ain't your land.
We're not a corporation. This land isn't a corporation.
Exactly. And that's part of the trick. They renamed our land. Oh, I'm just getting tired. They renamed our land this. Did you know that Mexico is called the United States of Mexico?
Yeah.
This is just a political phrase. That's not a name of a landmass. You see what I'm saying? The United States of what? Because after that is the United States of Mexico. That's the name of the land. The United States of what? Of America? America's 2 continents and a bunch of islands? So the United States of what? And this is the name of the land.
Morocco.
You starting to see the trick? So when you call yourself something, if you call your land something other than what it is, then you're incompetent, right? You can't claim land here.
And what are they going to do? They're stealing, so they're like, I guess it's that and that's this.
You can't claim land. You can't claim the land of the United States. That's not a geographical landmass. This is a geographical landmass. What, a land, people, law. This is a phrase. The United States. The United States of what? You see what I'm saying? And that's not the land. So again, with people trying to claim land, now you'll see why so-called Indians aren't getting what they want, because they keep calling the land something that it's not.
Which is crazy because they know his Narragansett.
Oh, and exactly,
at
that's
least
the trick,
here,
right? How are you gonna claim? Yeah, I'm claiming land in Rhode Island because I'm Aboriginal, indigenous to Rhode Island.
How? Since when?
This
Since
has
what
an
year?
incorporated date on it.
Yeah.
This isn't land. Just like this isn't land.
And then
You
you
get the
continue
trick?
to call yourself Indians when you know that's
So
not what
those
your
those right there,
grandmother,
those-
your
Both
great
of these
grandmother
are
called them.
corporations, not land masses.
Not the true name of the land.
I said they continue to call themselves Indians too when they know that's not what their family called them.
And that's not the name of the land. This isn't India, so go to India and claim land in India if you're Indian. Because last time I checked, you'll even see some so-called Indians with this on their head. Why are you wearing a Moorish fez if you're Indian?
Because they know that they're true.
Because they know that they're Moors. They're just sellouts.
Yeah. I don't want to be a sellout.
I don't want to be either. But yeah, and getting our land back will also be part of consular courts. Because once we start operating within our judicial capacity, within the power that's in us, because we're attached to the land, we got the power of our ancestors, right? Once we start doing that, we're going to get our land back. Period. What did Fidel Castro do?
He took all the land back and gave it to the people.
To the people, right? And who did he kick off the land?
United States.
The United States is a corporate company. But the agents acting for the United States, all their so-called Christian reverend, blah, 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 he banned them, exiled them. You can't come back here.
But now that he's gone,
his brother's in charge.
oh, all right. See, I thought that he ended up opening the gates back up to America.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're starting to. They're working negotiations out.
Which should be a sellout.
No,
No,
because they're trying to enrich. They're trying to do the trade thing.
Oh, so
Because
they're trying to
cutting,
commerce.
because cutting them out cuts us out too, and we're the heirs to the land. It's just they're administrating it. You get what I'm saying? There's a bigger game going on, because the Europeans, operating under the United States Corporation Company, have been administrating our land and doing horrible things.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to cut the Moors out. Since we don't want to take charge, they have to do what they have to do to protect their people.
Themselves.
So they're saying, United States, you can't come here. No one. Which they have every right to do.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
This is why
And look at the wording that they use. Look at the wording that they use. They said, United States, you're not allowed here. Americans, we need to talk to you.
Yeah. And then Gerard Lee went to the Pan American Conference in Cuba. He got the land mandate for Upper Mexico. And then they went bankrupt. And then all of a sudden, Fidel Castro comes out of nowhere and says, "Yeah, this is land, Cuba for Cubans." Kicked all these Europeans out. They were doing horrible things to their children and stuff like that. This is what these Europeans do. It's not a secret. They've always been doing this. Right? So that's part of.
He said, "I want the sheriff. The sheriff."
Yeah. So that's part of Don't let
we
no.
can't address them as bring me the Grand Sheik.
Well,
Because we don't have
need
our people in our own consular courts.
But we need that, and the point of this video is to tell our people we need this.
Yep.
This is the only sole remedy for us. Period. No justice or else. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Or else what?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? March and pray again?
Yeah.
No, give me my land back, beat the drum, and then do nothing.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is I just seen a picture of Obama because you said he made the indigenous rights.
Oh, he signed the treaty. He signed the treaty.
I seen a picture with him and the prophet. No. Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah, I seen that.
Louis Farrakhan goes by Elijah Muhammad, the prophet's laws, basically. Yeah. So I seen a picture of that last night.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shoot, that must be before he made the indigenous rights for indigenous.
Yeah, but
even
you seen the video I did with Farrakhan, right? When he was sitting with that so-called Indian, and they were talking about if you touch every first or third person in the mosque, you're touching a Native American.
No, I didn't see that.
Well,
yeah.
They know. And then Farrakhan talked about Elijah Muhammad talked about Noble Drew Ali
and Marcus Garvey.
I know. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not like they don't know. There's just a game being played on our people, so that these people can stroke their ego, be rich, live in nice house, nice suit, nice everything, while all people suffer. Sell out.
So.
Period. It doesn't get any clearer than that. You know what I mean? How you got a nice house, a nice suit when there's homeless, indigenous people on the streets? That doesn't make sense.
And you're making money off of our indigenous people.
Yeah, and it's sick, right? But let me just end on a positive note, right? Enforce rights of indigenous people. Enforce treaty. Enforce constitution. Don't pay no $5,000 for some so-called Moors claiming to be some consulate when information is free.
Yep.
Right? That's all I got. But, we'll build off camera.
All right.
So Islam, peace. Stay tuned.
Peace.